I was like, that's amazing, and paused it, and I turned to Michelle and said, this is amazing, like, and described it, hit play again, and then it just got better.
I think God does position us in certain areas at certain times, and we just have no clue.
But you walked around the wrong way.
I walked around the one-way system because I was following my phone.
You can imagine God just having a real chuckle.
That is quite funny. Hi everybody, welcome to Diving Deeper, and today we have something very special. We brought the team from HQ out here in the sunshine, and we're going to look a little bit deeper into answered prayer. Well, let's get on to the next one, guys.
So many different choices I could have gone for answered prayers, but the one I've chosen to go with is the one that's probably had the biggest impact on my life. And this was back in 2012 when I was training for the Olympics. Not really, I wish I was. No, back in 2012 we were on holiday at Center Parcs and I got a flu type sort of thing. Believe it or not, I got accused of it being man flu to begin with, but gradually over the course of a few days it started affecting my body and I lost control of my fingers, then my hands, my arms, and over the course of a few days I went from being completely fine to being paralysed from the neck down. I got taken into hospital, I had various MRI scans and the like, and I got diagnosed of having something called transverse myelitis, which in slightly simplified terms is like a very hard, rare, one-off hit of MS. And the prognosis I was given was very bad. It was that I would probably be disabled for life. I might never leave the hospital. They had respirators on hand next to me because there was a chance it would start affecting my lungs. Which wouldn't have been good at all. And the chance of going back to life as normal was pretty much non-existent, and the best I could hope for was over the course of a few months the condition would plateau, at which point they would then look at potentially seeing if there's a way I might get back home, but live as a disabled person at home. Needless to say, we were scared, panicked, all of that sort of stuff. And friends, family around the world were started praying, and so many great friends praying. And Holly and I we were crying out in desperation. But one particular event happened that seemed to shift things, and that a really great friend of mine, JJ Waters, came up quite late that first night I was in hospital, about 10 o'clock at night. And in the car park outside, he'd been praying to God, and he felt God tell him to command me to pick up my bed and walk. Now that takes some courage to say to a newly paralysed person, pick up your bed and walk, but he did. And I wasn't healed there and then, but at that point this peace seemed to wash over me. And up to that point it had just been panic and desperation, but this peace washed over me, and from this place of peace I was able to feel God in it a bit more. I was able to trust him a bit more. I was able to have a bit more faith that actually he was big enough and strong enough for this not to be the end of the story for me. And I started to then, believe that maybe something could happen. Anyway, JJ left. I actually had a terrible night that night. And I had to be turned over by nurses on a few occasions. I was in a lot of pain. But at some point I must have gone to sleep. And when I woke up, I was healed. I could walk again. I got out of bed and went to the bathroom. I stayed in hospital for a couple of more days, for more tests to be done for the doctors to try and understand what had happened. I had further MRI scans that showed that what the scans beforehand had picked up with all sorts of damage, not a medical expert here, but to the myelin in the brain and the central nervous system that had been showed on the first MRI scan wasn't there on the second. It had disappeared. I was healed. It was an answered prayer, a prayer that fundamentally changed the course of our life. Obviously from a life of perhaps what's it going to look like to a life of being able-bodied and all of that sort of stuff, but a life of, goodness me, God, you really are good. You really are good, and you're powerful, and therefore life can't be the same for us again after that.
So that was really great, wasn't it? Really inspiring story, and just he was really, I think, really vulnerable and honest about, you know, what it can feel like in that situation. So I don't know if anybody else sort of has any reflections on those kind of scenarios where you just feel like, where are you, God, in the middle of this?
Yeah, I think I've got a story I can relate it to. I mean, it's not as dramatic as that, but when I started worship leading in church, and just as I joined London Community Gospel Choir, I started getting this weird lump in my throat, and it would really swell up, and my whole neck would swell up, and it would make it really difficult for me to sing. And it wouldn't just happen once, it would happen over and over. And I went to the doctors and they did not have a clue what it was. They'd give me antibiotics, it would go down, and then literally like a few months later it would come back. So I obviously got transferred to the hospital, and specialists looked at it, and they said that I had a condition where I had like a cyst on my thyroid gland, and it would get infected and it would swell up. And the only way forward would be to have an operation to remove it. And I said, well, I'm a singer, so, you know, is that going to be detrimental to my vocal cords? And they said, yeah, it's going to be really close. Like, we can't guarantee that your voice will be okay. So I was like, well, God, what do you want me to do? Because you've just like made me a worship leader at church, and I've just joined an amazing gospel choir, and I'm singing professionally, so how is this going to work? And I struggled with that for a little while. You know, I prayed that to God over and over again, and you know, the people around me were praying for me as well, but it just kept coming back. It was persistent. And then one day we had a women's conference, and this visiting pastor came, and she was giving words to people in the service, and there was about 300 women there, and I just led worship, and I just sat down. And she said, I've got a word for someone called Gemma. And she didn't know what my name was.
Wow.
You know, she didn't know that. So I was like, that can't be me. There must be some other Gemmas sitting here. So I was a bit, you know, as you are normally a bit shy. And she said, no, there's a singer in here called Gemma.
Wow.
So everyone looked at me, and I just stood up. And she went, oh, it's you. You're the worship leader. And I was like, yeah. And she said, God wants you to know that he's going to heal you. He will do it.
Tingles. Wow, that's so amazing.
I was like, wow, she didn't know what was wrong with me, or she didn't mention any of that. And everybody just put their hands up and prayed for me there and then.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that's amazing. But the healing didn't come straight away. So I still struggled with the physical symptoms, and you know, still was going back to the doctors to get antibiotics. And I was saying, okay, God, you've told me that you're going to heal me. When is this going to happen? Because it was affecting my job, it was affecting my singing, it was affecting church, it's everything. And then what happened, it just kind of gradually just went away. It wasn't just that moment where it just suddenly went. It was just like a gradual thing. And then one day I realised I wasn't getting it anymore. And it's never been back since.
Wow.
That's so amazing.
So I think the lesson I learned in that is, you know, God kind of built up my trust for him in that time. I had to really believe that I was going to be healed, even when I wasn't.
Wow.
And that was really, I think, the lesson that God taught me, that, you know, when you're going through that and when you're still feeling it, you've got to believe that you are going to be healed. And I think that's what this guy did, you know, that he had this forecast that it wasn't great, wasn't it? But he knew that God was going to heal him. And I think it's believing that even in the darkest moments when everything looks so bleak. So yeah, that's my take on things.
Yeah, it's the journey again, isn't it? Like, it's not about just the being healed, but it's about the faith, the relationship that you have with God, isn't it?
Yeah, and not forgetting, I think, as well. Don't forget, you know, what God's doing for you and how he's done it. I mean, that guy, he can never forget that, can he? Because that was such an amazing answer to prayer.
Yeah.
And I love also that he was in his hospital bed, and his friend was praying outside. You know, he knew that JJ was there and that he was praying for him. And I think, although this was 2012, I think he said, when this happened, it's really relevant today, you know, with all the restrictions we've had during lockdown. There's so many sort of distant praying situations now, but where we've really seen God move. And so loads of prayer ministries and our partner ministries have gone online, and they're saying, you know, there's no limit to how God's moving. We're still seeing healing, we're seeing God do different things that we've never experienced before, and it's almost like it's just free them up to take God out of a box that he might have been
Yeah.
put in by what they were doing in
Yeah.
their normal scenario, and so they've seen really amazing answers to prayer as a result.
Yeah.
And I think the COVID situation that we've all been faced with, I think it's brought a fresh awakening of the desire people have to connect with God. Because I know at our church, they've started doing a Friday afternoon service, which they never needed to do before, because so many people were contacting them saying, I need help with this, I need help with that, and they weren't Christians. And so every Friday now they have a service in the afternoon, and they have new people every week, and people are being saved every week. And
That's
they're
so
coming
cool.
for healing and for hope. People really want hope. And I think, you know, prayer doesn't have to be directly one-on-one. It can be at a distance, as you were saying, praying for that.
So good.
Yeah. Any other comments, guys? Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been amazing just to share some of those stories and just dive a little bit deeper into answer prayer and what it actually means to us. So thanks for joining us. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Stay blessed.
Bye.
Bye.